In the news tonight, Jordan remembers the late King Hussein on the 18th anniversary of his passing, as King Abdullah receives cables of good wishes on the occasion of assuming his constitutional duties. Israel passes a law retroactively legalizing about 4,000 settler homes built on privately owned Palestinian land in the West Bank, drawing international concern and condemnation. And Ayatollah Ali Khamenei dismisses the U.S. decision to put Iran on notice over its missile tests and calls President Donald Trump the real face of American corruption. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. His Majesty King Abdullah, the Supreme Commander of the Jordan Armed Forces Arab Army, called on the Army General Command Headquarters, where he was greeted by Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Lieutenant General Mahmoud Freihat, His Royal Highness Prince Faisal bin al-Hussein, and senior officers. His Majesty and the Army Chief discussed a number of operational and logistical issues. King Abdullah voiced satisfaction at the high morale and level of readiness of the various Army units to defend the homeland, preserve its security, and fend off any attempt to undermine its stability and sovereignty. Jordanians today remember His Majesty the late King Hussein on the 18th anniversary of his passing. King Hussein died on this day in 1999 at the age of 63. He was the longest-serving executive head of state in the world. Born on November 14, 1935, he was the eldest son of King Talal and Queen Zain al-Sharaf. Hussein was proclaimed king on August 11, 1952 at the age of 18, and on May 2, 1953 he assumed his constitutional powers. Throughout his 5-decade rule, the late king worked hard to raise the living standards of the people. His commitment to democracy, civil liberties and human rights helped make Jordan a model state in the region. Today also marks the day His Majesty King Abdullah assumed his constitutional powers. On this occasion, His Majesty received cables of good wishes from public and military officials, expressing their felicitations on the 18th anniversary since his accession to the throne. They voiced pride in His Majesty's leadership and hailed his efforts for the prosperity of Jordan and his Mideast peace efforts. On this occasion, His Majesty King Abdullah laid a wreath at the tomb of the late King Hussein and recited verses from the Holy Quran. Members of the royal family, as well as senior government and military officials, also visited the royal tombs to honor the memory of the late king, founder of modern Jordan. Jordan condemned the Israeli KNESSET law that legalizes the construction of settler homes on privately owned Palestinian land in the occupied West Bank. A government statement said Israeli confiscation of Palestinian land is a violation of UN resolutions and international law. Minister of State for Media Affairs Mohammed al-Momani in the statement said Israel, as an occupying force, is demanded to maintain the status quo in the West Bank and not permit the construction of settlement units on Palestinian-owned land. Momani reiterated that such provocative acts by Israel would only serve to anger Palestinians and undermine their rights for an independent state on national soil. He made reference to the UN Security Council Resolution 2334, which was adopted in late December, saying it highlights the growing isolation of Israel due to its illegal settlement activity. The law passed by Israel yesterday retroactively legalizes about 4,000 settler homes built on privately owned Palestinian land in the occupied West Bank. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said the KNESSET law will be put forward to the international community and asked for the world to help to ensure the application of UN Security Council Resolution 2334 before it is too late. He described the law as an aggression against the Palestinian people and against the will of the international community that voted the resolution, pledging continued efforts with international courts in order to protect Palestinian existence and land. Abbas was speaking at a news conference following talks with French President François Hollande in Paris.
The Balfour Declaration is the cause of our tragedy. And despite this, the British government wants to celebrate the centenary of this declaration. We have told the British government that it is a mistake. They must not do it. On the contrary, the British government must apologize to the Palestinian people and must recognize the Palestinian state if we want Britain to be a fair and just state.
President Hollande said the Israeli law is contrary to a two-state solution. Speaking at the news conference with ABBAS, he said the acceleration of settlements, if confirmed by the Constitutional Court, would open the way to the annexation of the occupied territory. He said he believes the Israeli government can revise the text and can find a path of balance, negotiation and dialogue. Palestinians, meanwhile, are voicing concerns about the future of a two-state solution. Here's more.
The settlement bill is raising Palestinian as well as international concerns. The UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East peace process, Nikolai Miladinov, said the law will have far-reaching legal consequences for Israel and will greatly diminish the prospects of Arab-Israeli peace. Palestinians condemned the legalization as a blow to their hopes of statehood.
They are confiscating lands and expanding the settlements, which make it tighter for us to have land to live on. If more people will come from abroad, there is no place for them. So we should all get up together, united and resist. The most important thing is to be united. Having the legalizing for settlements means that there will be ghettos and apartheid areas for Palestinians to live in. In other words, suffocating Palestinians with cantons for Palestinian residents living in these areas, which are, according to all the international norms, are known as pure Palestinian lands for the future Palestinian state.
In Tel Aviv, some residents criticize the law while others voice support.
I think it's a horrible law. I think it's impossible to take lands from their owners and to work against the ownership of people.
Senior PLO member Hanan Ashrawi explains the ramifications of the law.
It also gives the settlers not only a green light but license to embark on a land grab and to steal more land with full impunity.
Some believe the passage of the law may only be largely symbolic as it contravenes Israeli Supreme Court rulings on property rights.
The regulation law will turn stealing into an official Israeli policy and stain the Israeli law books. The implications of the law includes the retroactive legalization of 3,850 housing units built illegally on private Palestinian lands, as well as to the expropriation of 8,000 dunams of private Palestinian lands. This is unconstitutional. It is contrary to Israeli law and to Jewish values.
Israeli politicians say Netanyahu privately opposes the bill over concerns it could provide grounds for prosecution by the International Criminal Court in The Hague. He did not attend the vote because he was on a plane back from London when it was held. Under the new law, settlers could remain on the land if they were built there without prior knowledge of Palestinian ownership, or if homes were constructed at the state's instruction. Palestinian owners would receive financial compensation. Israel cites biblical, historical and political connections to the land of Palestine and disputes security needs. Rana Hassan for the news at 10.
To Syria, where President Bashar al-Assad said his family did not own the country they have run for 46 years, adding he would step aside if the Syrian people chose another leader in an election. Speaking to a group of Belgian reporters, Assad said he saw promise in U.S. President Donald Trump's determination to fight Daesh, although it was too early to expect any practical steps. Asked if he could imagine a Syria that was not run by his family in light of the fact that he came to power after the death of his father in 2000, Assad said, quote, "Of course, we don't own the country. Syria is owned by the Syrians and every Syrian citizen has the right to be in that position," unquote. The month of January was the worst month for Syria's besieged areas in terms of receiving humanitarian aid, according to the United Nations. UN spokeswoman Yara Sharif told a news briefing in Geneva it has been the worst month since March last year, adding that the UN Special Envoy for Syria, Staffan de Mistura, is alarmed at the failed humanitarian access. Sharif said last Sunday an interagency convoy delivered food and other supplies to the hard-to-reach town of Tbilisi in rural Hims, which was last reached by a convoy on September 19, 2016.
While all of the formerly besieged neighborhoods of East Aleppo City have now become accessible to humanitarians, reports of unexploded ordnance and other remnants of war continue to hinder access and delivery of assistance to some areas. There is a grave concern that since 14th of January, an estimated 1.8 million people in Aleppo City and rural eastern Aleppo have been cut off from their main source of water, Khafsa, which is under ISIL control.
In the southern Syrian countryside, meanwhile, people gathered at the entrance of Al-Diyabiya town as many started to return to their homes. Syrian authorities finished 70% of the rehabilitation of the infrastructure in the town, which was recaptured by the army in 2013. After hours of checking the identity of every single person, residents of Al-Diyabiya finally entered. For many, and despite the extensive damage to the residential area, returning home meant more than coming back to their possessions. And in Iraq, residents of Qaraqosh are going back to a once thriving Christian town near Mosul after Daesh was driven out by the army, only to find ruins. Not feeling safe about going back, a group of volunteers arrived in the town to wipe out signs and slogans painted on the walls by the terrorists, a first step in rebuilding the community and bringing the town to what it was before. Though residents acknowledge the task ahead is difficult, they are adamant to rebuild their town and urge the international community not to turn a blind eye to the fate of Iraqi minorities. The city of Qaraqosh, once home to some 50,000 people, was known for its flourishing academic and scientific community. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani said his country's nuclear deal with 6 world powers can be used as a stepping stone to diffuse tension in the region. Addressing a ceremony to celebrate the Book of the Year award in Tehran, Rouhani called the deal a win-win accord that benefits everyone. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was vocal in his criticism of the U.S. administration, saying Trump has shown the real face of America and that his threats will not frighten Iranians. This report has more.
It's the first response from Iran's supreme leader since U.S. President Donald Trump was sworn into office almost a month ago, dismissing the man who's threatened to overturn what the Obama administration considered a diplomatic achievement for the rival nations. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei telling his military that Trump has shown the real face of America, according to his website, and that Trump confirmed what we have been saying for more than 30 years about corruption in the U.S. government. As a candidate, Trump often suggested that he'd withdraw from a 6-nation agreement concluded in 2015 for Iran to curb its nuclear program in exchange for lifting sanctions, the rift with Tehran opening almost immediately after he took office, starting with his executive order banning refugees and visa holders from Iran and 6 other Muslim-majority nations. After Iran responded with very public missile tests and military drills, they were hit with fresh sanctions last week, Trump warning Tehran was playing with fire. The frosty relationship between the countries had warmed somewhat during the Barack Obama presidency. They remained at odds over the war in Syria, but the nuclear deal was seen as a milestone. Iran's president staging a robust defense of it on Tuesday.
This deal is a win-win. This deal benefits everyone. It benefits the region. This nuclear negotiation can set an example for dozens of other negotiations that will lead to security and stability.
The White House says the test violated the spirit of the deal, if not the letter. Now, sources familiar with U.S. strategy are telling us Trump isn't likely to dismantle the agreement outright, but may seek to renegotiate key aspects.
And Donald Trump says he needs a U.S. appeals court considering the legality of his immigration order to go his way. A lot of bad people are thinking of coming to America, he reiterates. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit in San Francisco will hear arguments later today on the merits of a temporary ban on travel to the U.S. by individuals from 7 Muslim countries. The White House, which issued the ban under an executive order by Trump, argues that it is necessary to preserve the nation's security.
You know, the vetting is much, much tougher now, and we need this court case that would be very helpful to keeping the wrong people out of our country. You understand that better than anybody. So I think we're going to have some good results. It may take a little while, and you know, this is a very dangerous period of time because while everybody's talking and dealing, a lot of bad people are thinking about, hey, let's go in right now. But we're being very, very tough with the vetting, tougher than ever before.
Meanwhile, Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly told a congressional panel that the United States is not considering adding any countries to its list of 7 whose nationals were temporarily banned from entering the country on visas. Kelly was responding to reports that the Trump administration was considering adding 12 more countries to the list.
We may just focus on certain countries, not additional countries, but additional vetting schemes. Vetting processes that will go further to satisfy me and presumably the president that we know who we're dealing with, we know what their backgrounds are, and if they don't want to cooperate with the additional vetting, just like if they don't want to cooperate now, then they don't come to the United States.
In the latest series of attacks in Afghanistan, at least 20 people were killed and 38 injured in a bomb blast outside the Supreme Court in the capital, Kabul. There was no immediate claim of responsibility. Police said an apparent suicide bomber targeted the Supreme Court employees as they left their offices at the end of the workday. They said the bomber appeared to have entered a security check area when he detonated the explosives. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani condemned the attack as a crime against humanity and an unforgivable act. This is the second major blast in Kabul in recent days. Last month, twin blasts claimed by Taliban bombers killed more than 30 people and wounded about 70. To style and glamour, and designers are preparing their fall-winter 2017 collections at New York Fashion Week, dubbed the Shows. 72 designers will show their collections starting on Thursday the 9th till the 16th. Technology will continue to play a big part during the week, with each show being broadcast online, giving fashion fans a chance to see new looks first and purchase them right away. Trends from the past are expected to take over the runway, with the flared denim definitely making a major comeback. Menswear is expected to come into play both for spring and for fall. Pantsuits and power suits are also returning. Fabric will vary from satins to silks, while fun with fur will come in many colors. Logo t-shirts, chunky sweaters, and statement earrings are also expected to play a major part in collections this season. Lindsey Vonn's first run at the World Championships lasted just a few seconds when the American slid out of the Super G in St. Moritz, with Austrian outsider Nicole Schmidhofer staging a major upset to snatch victory. Despite a perfect start, Vonn slid out mid-course but managed to avoid a crash. 27-year-old Schmidhofer, who has never won a World Cup race, gate crashed the first day of championships with a perfect run, shooting out of the gates and taming the icier parts of the lower course with skill to finish in 1 minute, 21 seconds and 34 points of a second. Second place went to Tina Weirader of Liechtenstein, and third came Lara Gut of Switzerland. Over 200 flyers from around the world competed in the 4th edition of the indoor skydiving wind games in Umbrivabrava in northern Spain. In addition to the traditional categories, the 2017 Wind Games also included new disciplines such as solo speed, 4-speed, and two-way freestyle to music. Luke Warren conquered the Wind Games gold medal in the two-way dynamic category, and Belgian team Hayabusa won the gold in the freestyle category. And finally, a look at the weather forecast. Cold conditions continue in most regions for the rest of tonight with southeasterly moderate winds. Similar weather prevails tomorrow with fair temperatures during the day, dropping to a low of 4 degrees Celsius in Amman. Light rain is expected in the central and southern regions, while winds will be southeasterly moderate to brisk, stirring dust in the southern and eastern parts. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect relatively warm conditions with northerly moderate winds and calm seas. Here now is a look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, his reminder of the day's top stories. Jordan remembers the late King Hussein on the 18th anniversary of his passing, as King Abdullah receives cables of good wishes on the occasion of assuming his constitutional duties. Israel passes a law retroactively legalizing about 4,000 settler homes built on privately owned Palestinian land in the West Bank, drawing international concern and condemnation. And Ayatollah Ali Khamenei dismisses the U.S. decision to put Iran on notice over its missile tests and calls President Donald Trump the real face of American corruption. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Ali Abdul Khan. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.